Go. Let's learn more about AvidXchange. Take it away.
I am, Kim. Thank you very much. Hey, very impressive, Kim, on the introduction. What I mean by impressive, all the education that you provide to your clients, it's awesome to see all the content that you're pushing out to them, because in today's world, we're always running around like chickens with our heads cut off, and there's so much things that we have to do. And you talk about year-end processing, the demands on finance year-round, when you talk 1099 and all the audits that come up. So it's impressive that InterDyn BMI is so committed to the customers as far as education and provide these sessions. So we appreciate the opportunity. It is all about education. So today we're going to share with you lots of content, some stories. We're going to actually do a demo. So we'll log in and show you what a day in the life of an automated invoice looks like. So I really do appreciate your time. But I want to just introduce myself. My name is Michael Johnson, or Mike Johnson. I'm a sales manager here at AvidXchange. I've been around the company for 4 years. Before coming on board, I had the opportunity to be a partner of AvidXchange. So I was so impressed with the technology, the culture, the passion behind all things AP automation. When the opportunity presented itself, I joined AvidXchange back in late 2013, early 2014. And really appreciate what we've been doing as a company and as a solution provider. The benefits I have is like you, I've sat on your side of the desk. I was a business owner, an entrepreneur. I was a general manager for a company for 5 years and had the ability to do all things finance. I'm not a CPA or accountant by trade, but I opened and closed the books, did AP, AR, managed the staff, handled vendor calls, went to court to collect money on receivables, had a lot of fun, a lot of learning. So I have a great appreciation of what your days are like, and because it was my life for 5 years. So I can appreciate everything you do. So we're looking forward to, we have a good partnership with InterDyn BMI. Our foundation, like InterDyn BMI's foundation, is all about education. The more you know, the more better you'll be prepared to jump into AP automation. So I really do appreciate your time you're spending with us today. I want to introduce you to Brian Nelson. Brian is a dedicated resource for AvidXchange. He's embedded in the Minneapolis office, or will be shortly, at InterDyn BMI to help you out with any questions you may have. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about Brian. He's a world traveler, but a Minnesotan resident, native resident, and proud to be back home, and has just joined AvidXchange a couple weeks ago, and he'll be ready to roll. It's starting on Monday up in Minnesota. I'll be flying into their corporate headquarters and helping getting him set up and launching the plan to support InterDyn BMI's customers more as they explore AP automation. So every meeting, of course, needs an agenda. So we just want to cover a few topics here. We're going to talk about what is AP automation, the current and future state. And what do I mean by that? It's really looking at, hey, what do I do now? And what happens when I automate this process? And then we'll talk about the different roles in finance, from an AP processor or AP manager to a controller to a CFO. We're actually going to do a live demo. So as I mentioned, I'll log in and show you what a day in the life of an AP processor may look like, just to kind of pique your curiosity, because as Kim mentioned, if you want a deeper dive or a personalized demo, we'd be happy to accommodate. We'll do a couple of audience polls as we go throughout this session, because we're curious about your reaction to some of this content. We'll have a general Q&A, and we'll also be monitoring the chat box here on the GoToWebinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. And when we get to the end of the presentation, we'll actually review those, and I'd love to engage you some dialogue on this. So what is AP automation? And so we need to really kind of define it, because it means a lot of things to a lot of different people. It's always subjective or objective. We hope to help understand what it is that you think AP automation is. But for the last 16 years that we've been in business, we were founded in early 2000 in Charlotte, North Carolina by Mike Prager. We're a SaaS model, so it's software as a service, so it's in the cloud. So there's no hardware or software that you need to buy to access your critical AP data. We build a portal for our customers in as little as 45 days. You control who has access, what they can see, and what they can do. There's no seat or site licenses. It brings that phenomena we've heard for the last probably 5 to 8 years about SaaS or cloud-based technologies, and is now being readily adopted by most corporations, we find. But this is really what I experience as a business owner with my AP process. An invoice comes in today, comes in probably via email or mail. Somebody's opening the mail, and yes, when they get an email, they admit to me, they confess to me that they actually print the email because they need a hard copy. They may be working with some kind of purchase order system, so attaching that with the invoice and then routing it out. It may take the form of an email attachment. It may take the form of the company weight loss program called SneakerNet, where we get up and we walk around the office to hand out invoices to get them approved. The approvers may be coding. They may just make a mark. I've seen some people stamp the invoice. They put a yellow sticky note on it, some kind of notation that tells accounts payable that it's good to pay, and then the information comes back, budget's being reviewed, and then somebody physically is probably doing the data entry into your GP system. So somebody within the AP department is looking invoice by invoice, keying that into AP, into your AP module in GP. And then when it's posted to GL, you make a business decision. Hey, we've got money in the bank, we've got cash, let's pay our vendors. Lots of changes. These invoices are changing as far as they're being received. Lots of ways people are paying their vendors. There's lots of processes out there we're seeing. ACH you may be using. You may have a corporate card, credit card to pay your vendors. But you have to tell you that it's really shocking that here in 2017 now, hard to believe it's 2017, and January is almost in the books, is that about 50% of all B2B transactions, that when you pay your vendors, still is centered around a paper check. Hard to believe. And we here in the U.S. tend to be laggards when it comes to adopting payment technology. I think it's a combination of, hey, we still have that requirement with some vendors, and also just a comfort level. It's that age-old, hey, why do you do it that way? Well, we're doing it this way because we've always done that way. We write a check, or we print checks, and we sign them, and we send them out. And because this process started manually or with paper, it's going to be filed. So you're using a filing cabinet, a filing system, and again, you're trusting that people put stuff back where it's supposed to be. It's not on somebody's desk in a box after an audit, and so research becomes a manual process. So everything I've described here may be very similar to what your processes are today, and what this equates to is really time. So, and from an AP automation standpoint, as a cloud provider, everything you see here that has our lovely little X logo over top of it is replaced by software and service. And I say software and service because we're utilizing software, or you're utilizing software to automate the process, but there's a high level of service behind it because we want to make sure that you're successful with this technology. So no more need to receive the invoice. So we'll capture the invoice, whether it's mailed or emailed. We'll provide it to you. We'll alert people on your end when they have invoices waiting to approve. We are very configurable coming to dealing with custom workflows. Your business is unique to you. Who has to see it? No more opening the mail. No more attaching a PO. No more physically routing it using a courier or the SneakerNet phenomenon or email. Everything's aggregated in one centralized portal. You're in charge of coding and approving. That's what you really want to do. And then when it comes back to the AP department is simply going to do their final review and approval. And this eliminates the data entry into GP. So we're integrated with GP, so that information is passed as an open payable into your accounting system, including an image of the invoice. Once it's in there, as you do in your normal business process, say, hey, let's pay our vendors. A lot of times for many of you, it may be on a Thursday or Friday. And in the end of the week, we fire up the microtoner printer, we get ready to pay our vendors, we print our checks, we fold them, we sign them, we insert them, put a stamp on it and send it out. But we can facilitate, in our world, we facilitate payments to our vendors simply by offering the vendor options. So it's a phenomenon where we help reduce the costs associated with printing checks, the envelopes, the cost of postage, the labor involved. And because it started electronically, it's stored electronically. So research becomes a mobile phenomenon. Hey, right? We live in a mobile world. As consumers, we buy online, we shop online. You can see it every day when you go to work. People have their heads in their phones. So why shouldn't the AP automation technology give you that kind of flexibility and be able to port your work or notifications or approval processes right to your phone? And that's what we offer you, that kind of flexibility in the business environment. So let's take a look at how automation is changing the AP world in the finance departments at most companies these days. So our current state is, we've kind of talked about it, this manual steps, everything's going in, everything's paper associated. It offers, you know, we always thought, you know, visibility because I can see it, it's in a folder. As you grow, you get more folders, you get more paper, becomes more cumbersome, and it all equates to the bottom line, which is time. And as I age, and I'm an older guy at this point, I appreciate the fact that there is no more time left in the day. I'm not going to get it back, so my time becomes even more valuable. So anything I can do to focus on things that help me in my job or help me in my role as opposed to shuffling paper or moving paper through a process is going to be an advantage to me as an employee for the company. So the future stage, really, we're going to streamline this process. We're going to take out lots of different steps. We're going to improve or enhance the visibility of insight into data, ad hoc reporting, the ability to know who touched it, when they touched it, what they did with the invoice. All the comments, attachment are going to be provided in a rich audit trail that's reportable. You can generate at a moment's notice to see what's going on with invoices, so you know where they are in the departments, who's holding on to them. You can actually improve performance because you can actually set folks on a timer to say, hey, you've had the invoice for 24 hours or 48 hours or weeks and you haven't approved it. So I know you've got it because I can see it. So now I can set you up on alerts. So the system's going to trigger reminders to you. So it's all, again, from a financial standpoint, we all know what it's all about. It's all about controls, visibility, and reporting. Insight into everything. And one of the biggest themes I'm hearing today is why people are looking at AP automation is they're trying to improve and reduce the exposure they have to fraud. So, and fraud happens, it's rampant. I have a buddy who's a distributor here. I live and work out in New England. He's a distributor. He called me in several years ago. He had found out his bookkeeper had been nice enough to embezzle about $150,000 from him by simply creating invoices and then processing them. He trusted her and then paying herself. It took him a few years to realize that when she was out sick one day. So it's unfortunate, but we need, as business owners and as shareholders of companies, to really monitor our activities and reduce the exposure we have to fraud. So what's driving companies to automate? It's really that new era of employees. Those millennials are now hitting the workforce. And as we all know, we've seen them, their heads are in their phones. So they're used to, you know, rapid adoption of technology. They're used to applying technology. They're used to, as consumers, as Kim mentioned, and I don't pay bills online nowadays, or my wife doesn't. The other week, I got a refund check for something, and my wife said to me, where'd you go? I said, I went to the bank. She goes, why'd you go to the bank? She goes, we have mobile banking. She put the check down on the counter, took a picture of it, and she says, I'm done. So all these newfangled technologies and new people coming out of the college today are a new era of employees that are introducing us to new ways to approach things. Cost of paper and invoices and checks is higher than the automated invoice impact. There's an ROI here, you know, return on the investment. And we know by studies what it's costing you to print a check, to handle a paper invoice. Those two elements involved, most studies will reveal it's about $22. Could be higher to process an invoice in your environment and to print a check. Checks alone, the last study I read by, I think it was Gartner or Aberdeen, it was about $4, between $4 and $7 to print a check. And think of it, it's the check stock, the envelope, the stamp, the microtoner, the labor that's associated with it. There's a cost here in the paper world. And then mobile. You know, we talked about it just a few seconds ago, our ability to connect with our phones. It's rampant. Everybody wants to be able to do everything on their phone. I remember 8 years ago sitting around a ski lodge with a bunch of parents, and there was 8 boys in the other room. And not a word was being spoken because they all had their heads in their phones and they were texting each other and texting their friends. So we live in a mobile society, so why not take advantage of that technology? And then the inability to really, when you look at cash flow, where am I, how much money do I have in the bank? It's all on paper. I can now, if I migrate to these adopting AP automation, I have a great insight into where my money is, my cash flows, so I can accurately predict, forecast, and pay vendors and manage that process better. So some of the challenges that are driving change, and we want to do a little bit of a deeper dive here into the research. So we're going to take a moment, and Kim's going to come on and she's going to do a quick poll because we want to get some feedback from you on what you're seeing out there and what you think some of the challenges are. So Kim, if you're ready.
Yep, I am. All right, let's do our first poll. Matter of fact, you know what I was doing? I was just going on my bank app to see what my balance was. Got me thinking here today.
Nice one. Yeah, nice, huh? So convenient. It's
And,
all about
well,
convenience, folks.
I'll tell you what, in taking pictures of your checks and all, it's the gas money, it's the time. There's a lot of things about that. All right, everybody, let's vote. Got to wait.
So right now you should be seeing a questions regarding what's the challenges for you today as far as AP automation.
Yep. What's the
You
biggest
know,
pain is it manual routing of invoicing for approval, manual data entry, inefficient processes. Majority of invoices received are in paper format. Lost or missing invoices and other. Boy, I misspelled a couple things there, but about 50% of you had voted. So let's get ready to close this poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
uh-oh.
90% voted, and it looks like 44% said manual routing of invoicing for approval and manual data entry, inefficient processes. 11% said the majority of invoices received are in paper format.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good indicator because we do see today that, and here's a study from Paystream Advisors. Some of when they survey the market, what do they find are the top challenges? And it seems like this group is really tracking right on. It's the manual routing of invoices for approval. I know in my business we had multiple copies floating around because the sales rep needed a copy, the customer service rep they made copies. So it was like, which one's the original? And where's the original when we get back to the final coding and reviewing of the invoice? So, and it's as we grow as a from a business perspective, I often see centralized accounting with multiple locations, departments. So the challenge becomes even more challenging when you're thinking of how do I get those out to people and get them back in a timely manner. And I've seen finance departments. I speak all day long and actually visit with companies in their finance department. I see all day long stacks of folders. Notes. I've seen spreadsheets that people use to capture and track and route invoices. So a lot of those processes that you talk about, again, they all equate to time that you're not going to get back in your day. And I had an opportunity, somebody said 11 or 40% said something about manual data entry. I had a great conversation 2 years ago with an energy company, who remain anonymous, and I had the CFO, the controller, staff accountant, and they brought the AP processor in. She's been doing it for, I would say, somewhere close to 35 years. So she had seen a lot in her time. And the CFO and the AP processor actually got into an argument because she thought she could data entry invoices faster than technology. And it got so testy that I felt a little uncomfortable. I wanted to leave the room because she said she could do about 600 invoices in an hour. And the CFO looked at her and said, well, I appreciate that, but I'd like to time it. And she said, go ahead. And then she paused, the CFO, and looked back at her and said, it probably explains all the errors we have. So, and like, wow, it was a really interesting insight into some of the processes going on in the company. So that's some of the advantage I have is I get to talk to folks like you all day long. And these trends around AP automation as a benefit are really to the forefront right now because these types of webinars, these types of conversations, go to GPUG if you were down in Tampa, lots of buzz around AP automation. How can I do it? When can I do it? And I have to tell you, it's a great pleasure from a solution provider to actually see that we're on the list. We were always on the list. It was on 1 to 10, but actually we've gone up the list. We're in the 1 to 5 bucket, so finding things of priorities for finance teams to do based on what's going on in the business. And we're getting rapid acceleration and adoption of technology because it just makes sense. We want to grow our businesses. We don't necessarily want to add more people doing data entry. We want to hire bright, intelligent people out of college who can use their analytical skills and finance and accounting backgrounds to do more than code invoices, do data entry into our accounting system. So the number one reason that we found was really in this research is manual routing of invoices, manual data entry. So you guys are right on track with what's being surveyed out there in the workforce in the world. So, one of the things that we talk about too is the relationships with suppliers. So, some of you may have different philosophies when it comes to suppliers. I found companies that love their suppliers and have a close synergistic relationship with them, and I have others that have kind of an adversarial relationship, and really managing that supplier, because it's not only that you bought goods or services, they sent you an invoice, but now comes the real fun, the follow-up, them tracking you for payment. They sent you an invoice, when are they getting paid? Then the questions they have about the payment. I need more remittance detail. Lots of things that go on between that communication that just take a great portion of your day. So a lot of that goes to, and this is the real confession that I've seen when we start to implement, people really don't have a good firm hold on their vendor master file, because there's lots of ways that people enter vendor information into their accounting system, and you've all seen it, it's very subjective, so you could have one company entered multiple times. So there's a lot of anxiety around, what's in my vendor master file, are they legitimate? And how do I keep that up to date when I'm chasing all these other paper processes? It's a nice project, and when we see people automate their process, it's a great time to clean that up and make it a tight type of data file that they can find. So lots of things going on. Late payments, nobody wants to be being done by their vendor saying, hey, you're past due, you're past due, you're past due. A tough place to be in, aggravating phone calls and emails to see. So not automating your process has a tendency to really strain the relationship sometimes with your vendors. One of the things we talked about early on was fraud payment. I gave you the example of my buddy, and you can Google fraud. You'll see it rampant. There are fun stories out there. One of my best was a gentleman in Texas who got really creative. You may have heard of Condé Nast. They produce a magazine publisher. They were using a printing company called World Graphics or something to that effect a few years ago. The guy figured out, he sent a letter into the finance department at Condé Nast saying, hey, we changed our bank relationship, our bank account. AP person didn't notice it, updated the bank records, started sending money to this new bank account, and finally the printing company called and said, hey, you're past due on your bills. You're not paying your bills. And they said, yes, we are, it's right here. Well, lo and behold, when they went back and did a deeper dive into what was going on, they found some guy in Texas was sitting on, I think, a couple $1 million worth of payments. And very creative. Didn't get away with it, but as we all know from a business owner's perspective or CFO, getting your money back and what you have to go through is a lengthy process. So fraud is rampant in U.S. and criminals are getting more intelligent on the ways to fraud your business. And we put a lot of security into our payment component. We provide 100% fraud protection. So that we provide security in that data. We eliminate the manual process. I was just speaking with the CFO down in Charlotte, and she's a customer of our pay solution, and she can actually take a vacation now because she was printing about 4,000 checks a month. She was printing checks every day of the week and even on weekends to keep up with the demand, and she had locked doors and security cameras. It was nervous. She's very nervous about the fact that somebody's going to come in, put one in the envelope and one in the pocket and then go out the side door. So she was very happy to find a solution that guaranteed her fraud protection and got her out from under dealing with the daily process of printing and stuffing, folding, inserting, and having staff do all that work for her. The current payment landscape, it's changing. I think it was about 17 years ago, early 2000 time frame, when I was running my business, where people on the pundit would come down and say, hey, we're getting rid of paper checks, and everybody went, yay, awesome. Well, flash forward, we're still about 50% of payments are via check, but we're seeing a good impact. People are migrating to, ACH has increased rampantly, but the challenges with that. I'm talking to the audience that has to call the vendor, get the bank information, verify that information, keep it up to date, because, they are like us, we change bank relationships, so that's an added responsibility if you're offering ACH to your vendors. Check is still, it's decreased, but it's still out there. Maybe some of you have seen this, and I've heard this from friends that have gone abroad or sent their kids over to England or to Europe to school, and you can't send them a check these days. Nobody over there knows what that is. So they've eliminated paper checks as a form of currency overseas, yet we here in the U.S. still have that requirement. Wires increased, but that's still an expensive option for most of us, and I see it more related to international payments, or I really got to get this money to this company or else I'm in real trouble. So people will facilitate wires, and there's a cost associated. We're seeing a huge increase in what we call P cards or purchase cards. Some of those come with some credit risks or obligations. Some are sponsored by banks, some are sponsored by credit companies. Lots of, you know, the whole point of this slide is really to pull out all the different types of options of payments that are out there. So it's kind of like Baskin Robbins these days when you get ready to pay your vendors, and knowing who wants what out of this host of options is sometimes a challenge on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, it's good news is that it has increased, but we're seeing rapid adoption. So let's take a look at a possible solution for automating a process. I'm never arrogant enough to say that we fit for everybody, but you know, during the vetting process, we typically talk and learn a lot more about how you do your business, and then we strive to understand whether we've got a good fit with our technology and yourselves. So let's talk about automating, you know, the benefits from a role perspective, how it will impact your location. So let's start with the AP Clerk or the AP Manager, and we'll quickly segue into the Controller and Chief Financial Officer. These are all happy-looking people, aren't they? More times than not when I come into a company, these aren't the happiest people in the world because they're trying to keep up with all the work that's accumulating, particularly as their companies grow. They get more work, and it's never, you know, I think it was, again, a decade ago, or even longer than that, we hit that philosophy, do more with less, and somebody at the top said, that's more, we're going to do more with less people. So everybody's taking on and wearing multiple hats. So there's a lot of stress, and as you guys on the phone know or listening, that accounting and finance is full of exceptions. So one of the themes I'd like to promote here is that let's get rid of the reoccurring, the easy stuff, so you can focus on some of the exceptions that pop up in your day-to-day world. So on an AP Clerk, you know, some of the goals you see here of what a person in that role is doing, managing vendor information, keeping records, making sure that, you know, performing the duties, you know, filing is one of the big ones, dealing with the paper. The challenges are the data entry, the filing of invoices. A great story of a very expensive filing clerk at a company down in New York, one of our customers, and they had the challenge of putting all this stuff back together again after an audit or on a weekly basis. They had so much volume that they decided on a Friday they were going to have a pizza party and invite the whole finance team in to do it. So it made sense, right? Seemed a lot of fun, got pizza, everybody files, everyone went home happy. The work was done. So over a period of time, as they did that, more and more people started dropping out of the party. I got to take the kids to practice, I'm not feeling good, I got another meeting. And lo and behold, it became a senior staff accountant who was just nice enough to do all the filing. So the ROI there was really upside down as the person that was doing the filing for all the invoices after the day was over. So lots of challenges in your role. You know what they are. What do we do when we automate the process? You know, the system can verify data for accuracy. Handling exceptions becomes a comfortable event as opposed to, oh my God, all the other things I got to do, and now I've got an exception to handle. The system can generate reports, numbers, give you the data that you need to crunch, can help you maintain the master vendor file information. You have these times to answer calls from your suppliers, deal with tax compliance, you know, approve payments in batches, and be alerted to, you know, all the things you need to know about, and gain complete visibility of where invoices are. It's not a phone call, it's not looking at your email, it's not looking at a folder to know where these things are. It's just, hey, let me log in and I can see what's going on and where these things are. The controller, you know, he's one step above the trenches, the troops that are in there day to day dealing with all the invoices and payment processing. He's hearing it, you know, he's hearing the, hey, we're pressed for time here, there's lots of going on, how can you help us? You know, they're responsible for making sure that the staff of the AEP department's happy and content, and then he's providing, he or she is providing them with the tools to be efficient at their job. You know, the challenge is a lot of that rolls down on the paper. So a lot of my friends are controllers, and they're handling spreadsheets. They're having to do reporting, and so it becomes difficult for them to take calls and handle some of the, you know, challenges that they have because they're deep in the weeds when it comes to all the data that they got to crunch and put on a spreadsheet. So automation benefits, they get the real-time access and really increase control. That reoccurring theme, I know when it came in, I know where it is, I know who's had it and what they've done with it. Really provides access on a real-time basis to what's going on. Of course, the CFO, those roles have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. I read a report or a study recently, about a couple of years ago, I think it was, that CFOs are really almost have bottom line revenue requirements these days. You know, it used to be a few years ago, if you were in marketing, you were at risk in a company. The rule was marketing people had a 2-year stay of tenure at a company because the market changed, they went. And now I'm seeing this more in the CFO lines. People are turning over CFOs more rapidly today than ever. And a lot of it is just based on the demands that are placed on a CFO to manage the financial risk, the financial planning, how are we going to be profitable, the revenue, where are we going to cover the gaps, how we're going to, augment and grow our staff and our company at the same time. And the challenge is all related to tracking that information, budgeting, having your hand in the, cash flow management, and just the staff organization and finding the right talented people and then retaining them. So, and then signing checks. I got a call from a person, she works at a hotel group down in Texas, and she said, Mike, it's time. And I said, what do you mean, Julie? She said, I was just assigned the responsibility of signing checks, and I don't want to do that. So we're looking at automating her process starting in Q2 of this year. So the benefits are synergistic across the board. Visibility, stronger resource to the CFO to know what's going on, to be able to report to the stakeholders internally and externally in the organization. Highly scalable. We have some great studies on how much invoice or how much material, how many invoices you can process on an hourly basis, manual versus the automated process. And then rebates. Hey, your vendors love to give you early pay discounts because they know some of the challenge for you is to get it through in a timely manner to take advantage of those discounts. All these things about technology give you that time back in the day. So let's take a look at the platform. So first, let me go back. I just want to show you how we get into this whole platform thing here. So how's it all start? So the first way it starts is that we here at AvidXchange collaborate with you and your vendors approximately 2 weeks before you go live to say, hey, we've automated our AP process. If you're going to email invoices, here's our company email address at Avid. It's easily identifiable to the vendor. If you're going to mail them, here's a new PO box you can send it into. We connect the vendor portals. We connect to EDI's, electronic data interchange, or some of the API connectors that companies and vendors are looking at, and also the U-Scan phenomenon. I call it a phenomenon because somebody goes out one day and says, hey, I went to Staples, I bought this, here's my invoice, or here's my receipt, how do I get it into a system? You can simply scan it on a typical desktop scanner or printer, PDF it, and drop it to your inbox. We'll receive it, we'll extract it, we normalize the metadata, which is a fancy term for saying we're verifying the header detail on that data on that invoice, the due date, the amount, account numbers, things that are you usually see in the header detail. And as you know, a lot of invoices are not standardized. They come in all shapes and sizes. So we take a moment, we make sure, this is the service level and guarantee and the commitment behind the technology, is that we're going to provide you an invoice that's actionable, that you can actually work on it and not have to fix. So we collaborate with you. We expedite this process. Our SLA, our standard level service agreement, is less than 24 hours. Once we receive an invoice, you'll have it back. Often it's the same day. And then we deliver it to you. And that delivery, you can time them, you can schedule them. It's an email alert saying, hey, Mike, you've got invoices waiting for approval. I'm in our demo portal all day long, and I get those alerts from other folks in our company saying I've got invoices. So let's take a look at the technology so you can get a good sense of what it looks like. So this is the portal. We would brand it for you, so it'd be your company logo. So I'm going to log in as Marie Cannon. Marie Cannon is the AP Clerk. She's typically the front line, and for most of our clients, she's the one that's been, he or she's the one who's been receiving the invoice, whether mail or email. They're doing the verification process. Yep, I've got an invoice. And then when they do what they have to do, they hit the approve button. It's going to automatically route out to other people in the organization for approval. So we have lots of flexibility when it comes to mapping to your process. So, but this is saying Marie's got 17 invoices waiting for her. She can configure this layout to her heart's content. So she may say, hey, I want to see the vendor, the invoice, the amount, and then the invoice number. So she can scroll through these at any point. She could say, oh, let me pick an invoice. Let's try this one. So during the scanning process, we've captured this invoice. We verified the header details. So whether it's 1 or 100 pages, she can scroll through it. It is a PDF. So if she needs access to our real physical hard copy, we don't restrict that. During the scanning process I mentioned, we verify the header detail, the invoice number, the due dates, the totals, the account numbers. Your portal is loaded with your vendor master file information. We sync that data out of your accounting system every day, so you have updates to your accounting system. It's reflected here in your portal. We associate that with entities. Many of you have centralized accounting and have multiple departments, locations, so we map workflow to those types of associations to those people. We talk about coding. We have 4 ways to help you code the invoice. So we can simply do manual coding, where I can simply start typing in an alpha. It'll pull up all the codes associated to that perhaps GL, that alpha description. So I'll say, oh, it supplies electrical. I'll fill in this comment field over here if I can type. So I can add additional information. These fields are expandable, so we don't have any limitation when we talk about expansion of fields to that degree. So that's manual coding. I can distribute this many times, because often, in the world of HD supply, it's going to be shared by multiple departments or locations. So I can manually do each one of these, or we have technology that we apply here to save you time. One of my customers is saying this is saving his staff about 30% of the time. It's called auto coding. So this is the typical routine invoice that comes in, every month or every week, that has the same code attached to it or assigned to it. Our system will send it to you already coded. You can always override it because you can look at it, but this one senior VP was telling me last month that it's saving his staff 30% of the time because they don't have to look at every invoice. So that's auto coding. Smart coding, if you have that turned on, says, oh, after 3 instances, here's a pattern, and you mean to code it this way, and it will come to you already coded. And then the 4th way is saying, hey, I've got some massive distributions for this HD supply invoice. It's going to be distributed over multiple departments. So build that kind of rhythm or distribution within your accounting system within GP, and we simply provide you with the template. You would import the codes, and it would do the distribution for you. And you can distribute this by dollar or percentage amount. So let's take I'm going to just do a quick manual coding. You can see I have a balance remaining. So I manually coded the invoice. I can attach anything I want to the invoice. So it could be a file, it could be a document, it could be anything I want to attach to the invoice. It could be a picture. One of my clients, I asked her, she's a controller, what does she attach? And Amanda was telling me that she copies and pastes all the conversation that she's had with the vendor. So when she's at the approval stage, she knows what they talked about, what the commitments were, what the delivery commitments, pricing, everything's right in front of her, as opposed to some in email, some in a folder, some on a notepad that she has. It's right in front of her. So you can comment on the invoice at this level. I can simply, because we don't work in a seat or slight license, we don't restrict access. I can simply say, this is Marie sending an email to me saying, Mike, please call me. Yeah, I need a credit. You often get those, don't you? So I need a credit. I'm going to create it. So I can log that comment. This becomes part of the audit trail. And when we say audit trail, that's the history tab. So the history tab shows you exactly date and timestamp, when the invoice came in, when it was loaded, who touched it. So you can see Mike Johnson loaded this. Bob Smith was involved. He did a distribution. You can see how he distributed it. You can see the comment that I just recently sent out. Call me, I need a credit. So this becomes your robust audit trail. It's all reportable. So let me show you that. So it's up here on the screen. I'm just going to do a search. So a quick handy report. At any point, you can generate your own report. I like to call these ad hoc. So I can look at approved invoices, disputed, pending approval. I can search by invoice number, entity, which could be a location, or vendor, or it's just simply do a date range. So I want to see where we stand. We're heading towards the end of the month. Yes, the end of the month. One in the books already for 2017. So I'm going to search the database of invoices. This is our demo portal, so there's not a lot of invoices here. But I'm going to select it. I'm going to generate a quick report, or I could export it to a CSV file if I have some fancy report writer like Crystal Reports. I want to massage the data. It gives me an option. I say I want the image because a picture paints 1,000 words. I want the summary, the header, the line, the code, accounting codes, distributions, the history, and any payment detail. And our system will go out and pull that information up for you in a timely fashion. Generally less than 15 seconds, you get a report. Pretty powerful when you think about it. Think of all the work you had to do to do this for the controller or CFO if you're in the AP department saying, hey, I need a report on where we stand for invoices this month. I did it in 15 seconds. Here's 4 invoices in that date range. Here's the header. Here's the coding section. So you see all that information here. And the all-important history table. So you can see when it came in, how long it took through this entire process. So it came in on the, when did it come in? What date? It came on the 11th and it was done on the 11th. So it was already approved. So you could, but you see all the detail here, who touched it. And this is where I've seen our customers really look to monitor, kind of, I'd say subtly, performance, because we all have them. We inherently call them laggards. Those are the departments that drive us crazy. Typically, they're marketing and sales. We send out invoices to approve, and then we never get them back, so we have to bug them. So you can actually set those people up in your departments or in your company on timers. You can have them scheduled. So if they don't approve it, the system sends them another email in a given amount of time saying you still have invoices waiting for your approval, and all that's reportable so you can see. And as I mentioned, we don't work in a site or seat license, so you can actually invite auditors in. They can do read-only access, generate this kind of content and report. This is what they're looking for, right, from an audit perspective. What happened to the invoice? What's the invoice look like? They're looking for any notes that may be attached to it. Anything is written on the invoice when we scan it will be captured. So here's the invoice in this case, and again, you can see all the invoices that are out there. And it's a PDF, so I can print it. So lots of flexibility when we talk in terms of the invoice status. One of the things I'd like to point out is kind of cool when you think as far as technology. We actually, once you start with us, we'll start loading in historical data. So you're looking at invoices from HD Supply from the moment you began with us throughout your life with us, and you can reflect on those. Meaning I've had customers say, hey, I want to look at, how did I code it last time? Is there any discrepancy between the price that on the last invoice? Why is that? Who approved it? Any comments? So I have a lot of capabilities at my fingertips, and I can do all sorts of things with it too. I can assign a workflow, or I can assign an ad hoc approver. And this goes back to the part down here I want to point out is the workflow. So workflow is is a sequential, so it could be 1 to 4 steps as we show here. It could be many more steps depending on the complexity of who has to approve in your organization. So we map to a role in the rule, and the role really is what your job is. If you're an AP or you're the controller, you're the finance, or the CFO, you would have a different rule applied to your job. So, when the person loaded this invoice to Bob Smith, he had the ability to review, code, and approve. When Bob hit the approval button, you can see it's pending at the next step, and there are multiple Marie Cannons in there. Those are my other associates in the sales organization who have roles as Marie Cannon like I do, and you can see it's pending approval. And Marie's role is to review and approve, and then we can filter out. So, for instance, in this example, Jim Johnson's the VP of Finance, and hey, he doesn't want any bother with invoices under a certain dollar amount, so he won't be. And then once it is finished with its approval, it comes back to AP, and you see Gary and Paige here, and they do their final review. Once they hit the approve button, it's ready for integration. It's ready for a GP. So it's loaded in. But say that Jim Johnson's left the organization or out, I can just sign an ad hoc approver, pull down from my directory and then give a little comment, say, hey, Jim is out, please approve. And I can assign that, and off it'll go to Jim, and then the workflow will modify. Or I can do assign a workflow. Based on the uniqueness of this invoice, it may have its own special properties. These are some examples that we built for companies during demo process: legal workflows, a marketing workflow, because it's a different approval process, treasury workflow. So lots of flexibility, lots of ability to configure this kind of solution to your uniqueness of your accounting process. And I really mean that. I've been in countless times for folks in finance and looking at their processes, and they're all unique to them. So let's take a look at I want to stop here on the demo, but we'll make an offer at the end if you'd like to see more as far as the demo and learn a little bit more about how this all works. We'd be happy to do that. So let's talk about what we do and what adds to your GP experience. So it's the ability to receive all your invoices electronically. That saves enormous amounts of time, by the way, up to some of the studies show about 60% having to wait and find those invoices and get those via email or mail. We facilitate 100% of your data capture. We have a 99.9 accuracy guarantee when an invoice shows up. Enhance the workflows and approvals, which we talked to at great length here today and showed you a few of those. Pass your AP data into your ERP system with no manual data entry on your end. Again, time. Some of the things I talk to folks about is when you automate your process, be prepared because you will have time back that you didn't have previously, and really start thinking about what folks are going to be doing in the organization when they've been freed up to do some of these other processes, freed up by automation. So, and not only from invoice perspective, we actually here at Avid touch on AP automation in 5 points. They're modules across your accounting system. We have a requisition PO solution. We have the invoice that we've talked about. We have a purchasing card application. We also have our Avid Pay solution, which facilitates payments to your vendors the way they want to be paid. So we can guarantee 100% fraud protection and help you eliminate or reduce the need to print checks on site and offer you a significant rebate back on that. And yes, we'd love to talk to you about how that works. So there's lots of new technology that's available to you as far as automating the payment process, and we'd like to have a great conversation with you about that. So let's take a peek at our second poll. So Kim, if you're ready to roll, we're nearing the end here.
That I am. All right, everybody, get your fingers ready. Here comes the second poll. And what is your next step? Now that you've gotten excited about this, you want more information about what you've seen, I want to see a personalized demo, or I'm just doing research right now. All right, looks like 63% of you have voted. We get ready to close this poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, with 75% voted, it looks like they want to learn more information. That's terrific. And then doing some research. So that's all a matter of time. So there you go. All right.
Great. Thanks, Kim. And that's a great point. I mean, when we started this conversation back on the top of the hour, we talked about education. And I'd like to reemphasize that. It's all about the more you know. When the time is right, you'll be ready to do it. Because often when I speak to folks in the finance department, when they finally raise their hand and say, hey, we're ready to talk about this, there's something going on. It may be somebody's new to the company, has used something like this before and says, hey, we should take a look at it. It also may be somebody who's left the company. So we've got a gap we need to fill. Maybe technology can address it. Or maybe we've got an acquisition. Our AP department is going to have to either add people or use technology because we bought another company. So there's usually a triggering event I find when people finally say, okay, it's time for me to do it. And I appreciate it takes time. I got a call last June, July timeframe from a woman, and she said, hey, Mike, it's Kim. And I said, hey, Kim. She goes, I'm ready. That conversation, really started in 2014, and it's all about education. She learned their process, understood, she felt comfortable, and she had that triggering event that really resonated with her to say, now would be a better time than ever to automate her process. So we appreciate the desire for education, so we're here to help. So let's take a look at, questions. So usually during these processes or webinars, people come up with kind of questions that they're interested in. So feel free to type in your message in the chat box, and be happy to help you.
Sounds good. So in the question area, go ahead and type what questions you'd like to ask Mike. I've got one right here. I will need something that integrates with our accounting system, Microsoft Dynamics GP. Do you integrate?
Yeah, we do. So we do that, and we have 2 different ways that we can do it, and we'd love to talk to you about it. One is a tried and true process. The other is an integration using, probably many of you in the GP world have heard the phrase eConnect. So simply as a GP admin within GP, you would simply pull what we call fully coded and approved invoices into GP. In Avid terms, we call that a batch. So the AP person on your end says, hey, I've done my final review. They create this batch by clicking the approve button, and then that's ready for GP, and GP just pulls it in. So great question. So any others?
And if there are other people here using other Dynamics products, do you work with all of the Dynamics ERP solutions?
We do. And yeah, we work with well over 120 different accounting systems. The way we connect with those systems may be a little bit different and unique to that accounting system. A lot of those, some of you may be, utilizing Avalara or maybe using Anytime, AR solutions or HR solutions that you're connected to your ERP system. And a lot of that is done with a file-based import. So we have all different ways that we can get into different accounting systems, but I personally have worked and have customers that have used AX, NAV, and SL along with GP.
Excellent. Sounds good. One question too is you talked a little bit about your implementation methodology and all. About what is the average time it takes to implement?
Sure, that's it. I love this question. So a lot of people think, oh my God, I'm going to automate my process. I'm going to have to shut down for how many months and how many weeks? No, having been at this for over 16 years now as a company, we have a very good process, and once we execute or sign an agreement with you, we quickly mobilize. You have a dedicated implementation team, which is a project manager, 2 implementation specialists. We need some homework from you to help build a portal, but collaboratively we're working with you. We can get you live in as little as 45 days. We can go quicker or it can go longer depending on what's on your radar. So I have a customer, a restaurant franchise that just signed up with me yesterday, and she's like, we want to start at the beginning of March. Oh, that's fine. So we actually have a guarantee on that 45 days too, and we have a one-time implementation charge, and we'll refund 20% of that if you help us get you live. So we're very motivated to get you on board, taking advantage of the technology, because it doesn't do either of us very good if you're just kind of hanging out there waiting and delaying. So we're highly motivated to help you.
That's cool. All right. Another question that's come in is there any way to further reduce the data entry in AvidXchange when entering invoice details?
Not sure if I understand that question.
I think maybe what's happening is you look at like document management solutions
Okay, yep.
where they are scanning the invoice and then it populates that information into GP and you verify. Can you do anything like that?
Well, the way our system's been built is to capture the invoice and provide it to workflow. So if somebody's looking for something to just take the invoice directly into GP, they could do that, but it would really be the header detail that we would capture and then provide to the accounting system. So I'm trying to figure that one out. So I've never had that question. That's a very good one. So, but you're thinking more in lines, Kim, on a doc management solution?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. A lot of times people want to be able to scan in that incoming invoice and then it's going to pick up that information. So I'm thinking that's what they're thinking.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, we have customers, we call them self-service, where they say, hey, I've still got the staff. Maybe I want to do the scanning. But, lo and behold, after a short period of time, they say, I got better things for those folks to do. So we'll just have Avid do all the scanning and document capture, and they just promote it to workflow. So we approach it different ways. The good thing and bad thing about Avid, and I say bad in a good way, is that we're very gray, meaning that there's lots of different ways that people can leverage our technology. So in often cases, it's like it warrants a further conversation or more questioning about really what your goals are, to really uncover whether or not we can fit. It's not like, no, we can't do that. Well, we've had customers that are very creative and figure out ways to do things that we couldn't figure out. So lots of learnings.
So this is a Kim question. So if I wanted to have my invoices sent to Avid, as an example, and have you guys scan them and or enter them, you do that type of service?
Absolutely. It's called full service. Wow. So as I mentioned, I'll mention again, we 2 weeks before we go live, we promote out to your vendors, hey, we've automated our AP process. If you're going to send us invoices via mail, here's our P.O. box. It's just a change of a P.O. box. And if you're going to email them, here's our company email at Avid. And we get about 80% adoption in month 1 because vendors are familiar with these processes. We've been around going on 17 years, so it's not the first time they've heard about this. So they tend to adopt it pretty quickly. And then in month 2 and 3, the other 20% fall in line. You will get calls from vendors going, hey, what are you doing? But they readily, pretty easy to adopt these days from a technology standpoint for their vendors.
Very cool. Very, very cool. All right. So Jerry asked the questions, well, how much does this solution cost?
Oh, Jerry, a bottom line guy.
They are.
Great question. Well, it's a secret. We can't tell you. It's not really a secret. Really, it's we only, depending on what you tap into us. I mean, from an invoice perspective, there's no monthly charge. It's a one-time implementation fee. We factor in, how many invoices that you're processing to arrive at that. That covers the cost of training, implementation, integration, all the things around getting it ready for you to use, and ongoing training and support and upgrades. As a SaaS model, the advantage, obviously, for many people is that we'll do upgrades at off hours, so you get to take advantage of new technology and added features when they happen. You don't have to schedule an installation or upgrade. And then we have a per transaction cost. And again, that per transaction cost can range depending on the volume that you have. The more invoices you have, the lower the cost. And then the only other fee that's on the invoice side would be for a lockbox, which is a P.O. box. So somebody says, hey, we still get 70% of our invoices via mail. We don't want to pick up the mail, open the mail, and scan it. We procure a block box, and they get an annual charge on that. So that's for invoice. And then on payments, it's just per payment transaction. So how many payments you send to AvidXchange that we facilitate on your behalf, whether they're check or paper check or two forms of electronic payments that we offer the vendor. It's at a low cost of 68 cents per transaction. And if you recall, some of the studies I mentioned, the cost per check could be anywhere from $4 and up. So for 68 cents, you can greatly reduce or eliminate all the consumables associated with printing checks on premise. And then we offer a rebate based on those vendors that accept electronic payments. Maybe some of the audience has already heard this. Maybe their banks have talked to them. Other carriers have talked about, hey, use our card and you'll make money. So we have all different types of programs that we can offer. The advantage to those things are they typically lower or cover the cost of the solution depending on the size of your organization. But great question. I would just need a couple of data points from anybody who's looking for price. How many invoices, how many payments you would think that would be applicable to this. And when I mean applicable, people don't pass payroll checks through here, don't pass employee reimbursement things. These are more specific AP vendor related invoice payments.
Great. Less expensive than buying an envelope, postage, and a label, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Think of slightly north of what you costs to put a stamp on an envelope these days. We'll process it all.
I personally like the taste of stamps. Not really. All right. When you integrate, does a copy of the invoice travel with the integrated data?
Yes, it does. And usually that relates to a CFO or a controller who says, hey, I'm in GP, I want to be able to see the invoice. So inside of my accounting system, as opposed to, oops, I got to go back out if I want to see the picture or see the image. So we do pass that information in.
I have someone that put in one word. It's called multi-currency. What's your multi-currency story?
Multi-currency, I think you'll find that the vast majority of providers on this side of the fence for AP automation are currently exploring it. We believe that a lot of the multi-currency is handled within your accounting system. We have some strategic partnerships with some folks that help on the currency exchange. It's a complicated matter given some of the compliance issues we all have, and some of the countries that we would need to process payments in, we would have to be established in from a banking perspective. It ain't easy, folks. So right now everything is done in U.S. currency. But we will be opening up the door to Canadian payments. I've been told sometime this year.
Sounds good. Excellent. All right. Well, our time is up. Thank you so much, Mike. Sure appreciate it.